Hi, welcome back. I'm Christine from Christine's Home Affairs, and today we're making a cravat. So this is Earl modelling our cravat, and this is the one that I'm going to show you how to make today. I have a customer that comes in and he likes his cravat, so I've made a few for him, and we kind of tweak it a little bit. Every now and then he likes a little bit different things happening in it. This has actually got pleats in the back of the neck here. Earl has pins in the back of his neck as well, but that's because he's a bit of a pinhead. Anyway, this has got pleats in the back here, and that comes all the way around to the front of the neck. It'll vary depending on a person's neck size. I have no idea how to tie a cravat, so it's a bit dodgy, but he looks good with it. So here we go. With my fabric, it's a 1/2 metre cut, and the width of the fabric is 1.5 metres. So it's about 21 inches by approximately 60 inches. Now I'm working with a stripe, so I'm going to need to make sure I match my stripes up. What we want to do is bring the raw edges together, and this is the right side of the fabric, so this is what we're going to see later on when the cravat's finished. So we want to make sure our stripes are lined up properly, and then we'll just clip the edges all the way across, and just make sure that those stripes are lined up. And I like to line them up on the actual stripe. And we'll do that all the way around. Now when we get to the end, this is the selvage. So I'm not sure if you can see on the selvage there's lots and lots of little holes from the tracks when the fabric's been woven. I'm actually going to come in just a little bit more when I sew this because I don't want those little holes to show through. But I'm going to clip this for now. And we'll do the same for the other end. Okay, this has been clipped all the way around. So we've got the 2 narrow ends and the 1 long end that's been clipped all the way. Now we don't want to actually sew the entire amount because we won't be able to turn it through. So just pick a spot, it doesn't really matter which end you go, or even if you go in the middle, pick an area to keep an opening. So I'm just going to keep about a 4 or 5 inch opening, and I might just go from the blue to just beyond the black there. So if I'll just put a double clip in here so that I know where I'm going to start sewing. So what I'll do here is I'll actually sew from here all the way down to the other end, come down here and sew down there, and then do exactly the same thing from here. I'll sew all the way down to the other end and come straight down, and then we'll turn the whole lot through. So we'll take this to the machine and stitch that down. So just making sure that my stripes line up. And I'm just using the edge of my foot as the guide. So the edge of my presser foot is my seam allowance guide. And just sew slowly, you don't need to go too fast. And just be careful, making sure you keep your raw edges lined up. And remove your clips as you go. Okay, we've come to the end, and what I want to do is close up this narrow end now. Now remember I said before there's lots of holes in here from the tracks on when the fabric was woven, and we want to come in just a little bit. So I'm just going to make that. There's no rule here as to how wide your seam allowance needs to be. I'm just not going to cut it off, that's all, not at this stage anyway. I'm going to make mine about 2.5 inches, no, 2.5 centimetres, which is about an inch. And I'll trim that excess off shortly. And I'm going to use the stripe, the thick stripe on this as my guide as well. That'll give me a straighter look. And just back stitch when you get to the end. And do the same for the other half of the fabric. This frays so much. Okay, so there's the double clips again. I've started over here and I want to keep an opening of around about 3 or 4 inches. This is so slippery. I normally don't like working with this fabric. And back stitch just to secure your thread, and continue on right to the end. So again, I'm using the edge of my foot as my seam guide. And back down the other side, the short side, and we'll come in again about 2.5 centimetres or an inch. I don't have a stripe to use as a gauge here, so I'm just going to use a 2.5 centimetre mark on my machine. And back stitch again when you get to the end. Okay, now we can go and trim the edges and the corners and turn this through. Now my stitching line is about an inch from the edge, so that's my stitching line there. I don't need to have that much fabric underneath when I've turned it through. I'm going to trim a little bit of that off. I can just do that freehand. So now what we've got is probably about 1 centimetre, just a little bit under. And we'll trim the corners because we want those to stick out nicely, have a nice point. So we just want to trim the corners just a little bit there. We've got the stitching line going across, and that'll give us a nice point when we've turned it through. And here I just want to trim off a little bit on the corner there. Obviously you don't want to trim a complete diagonal because otherwise you'll cut through your stitching line. Do the same thing for the other side. So you can see my stitching line here is halfway between the black there. And I'm just going to trim this back to the inside of the black line. And trim the corner, making sure I don't cut through the actual stitching corner. It's hard to see on this navy. So there we've got the corners trimmed. Now if we just find the opening, which is where we started here, and we'll turn this all the way through. So once you've turned that through, you want to make sure you poke your corners out. and we can use a pin to help coax the corner out, but this fabric is so soft and silky you can just run it between your fingers like that and that'll push the corner out. Same for the other side. Put your finger to the end there and poke the corner out. I do like to wet my fingers a little bit, just gives me more grip. And the same just here. Again, if you have trouble, then just get a pin and help coax that corner out. So you can just get your pin and help push that little corner out. Okay, what we want to do now is close this up. So we need to go and top stitch the entire piece of fabric. You can go and press it, give it a press to make it sit nice and flat. Here's our opening. This needs to be closed. So I'm going to go and give this a press and then we'll stitch it down. Okay, now we're ready to do our pleats. This has all been pressed nicely. This has been closed up. That's where the little opening was. So everything's been pressed flat. You've got nice sharp creases. And what I want to do with this piece of fabric is from the outside edge, I'm going to come in about 17 inches. Now I've already measured this, so my 17 inches is just up to here. I'm going to use my stripe as my guideline. So the 17 inches starts about here. There's no hard and fast rule for this. And I want a 12-inch space for my pleats. So 12 inches comes to almost the edge of the black here. So where this black stripe is here is approximately 12 inches. You don't have to be precise. What we do want to do is fold this fabric in half and find the center point. So I'll fold that in half and I'm just going to put a pin in the center. So where this fold is here, I'll just show you from this angle. Just going to put a pin in here and there's the pin in the center. What we want to do now is that center line here is bring this up to about 3/4 of an inch from the top edge. And we want to match up our stripes as well. So I've got a little guideline going down here. I've got my stripe here. This is just over 1/2 inch or about 3/4 of an inch. And just pop a pin in there and do the same thing all the way across to this area here. To the outside edge. Keep this nice and level. And I don't need that anymore. Okay, so now what we want to do is we're going to use this as our guide for the following pleats. So we just want to bring this up, fold the fabric up, and our next pleat is approximately the same distance from the second one. So all we're doing is folding that up, pinching the fabric up, putting it in place, lining up the stripes, And we'll put one more pleat in, and we want to make sure that this pleat is below all the folds that we've got underneath. So just bring this one up, and if you'd have to manipulate it a little bit, we can. Keep the lines straight there. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. We've got our pleats fairly evenly spaced. Now this is the thickness from, it's the back of the neck for a man's neck. So that's just going to be on the inside of the neck there, and then that's the pleats on the outside of the neck. So that's where we folded it up, that halfway mark, and then we've just put the pleats in underneath. What we'll do now is we'll take this to the machine and we'll actually stitch from this edge rather than stitching from this edge. We're actually going to stitch from this edge and go in that direction here. And we're going to do that at intervals, and we'll use these stripes as our intervals. So we'll have 1, 2, 3, and 4. We'll go with that side there. So they're going to be our stitching lines, and we're going in this direction from this side down that way because the pleats are going in that direction. If we go this way, we're actually going to distort the fabric and it might lift up when it goes on the machine. So we want to stitch from this side down there, and then what that happens there is that the layers that are underneath, they're already caught and they're less likely to move out of the way. So we'll take this to the machine and stitch that down. Okay, as I said, we're stitching from this edge down because the folds are actually going in this direction. So we've got our layers of fabric underneath, and we just want to catch this. I better change my stitch length. So I'm using about a 3mm stitch length because if I make a mistake I can at least unpick that. And I'm just following the lines on that stripe. And take your pins out as you go. And hold your fabric in place. Remember, this is a really, really slippery fabric, so it's going to move quite easily. And I'm just going slowly. And back stitch. And onto your next marker. So you can see how that's nicely pleated in there, and on the back it's just straight. Next starting line, same thing. And there we go. Here we go, the cravat's finished. I've taken this to the ironing board and pressed it down so all the pleats are nicely pressed and they're all pointing in the same direction, and this is our stitching line. The other side is just nice and flat, so it'll sit nice and comfortably on the back of the neck. And these are the pleats, so as you've got this around the neck, the pleats will be around the neck, This will be nice and flat on the guy's neck, and he'll be able to tie this however they get tied. So stitching's been trimmed, iron it down, and you have got a completed cravat. Doesn't take long at all. The fabric's horrible to work with because it's so slippery, but they look amazing on. I've seen this guy wearing his cravats and they do look really, really smart. So there you go, here's Earl all fitted out with his cravat. Looks adorable. Hope you've enjoyed the video, and we'll both catch you next time.